Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing a video on how I made these DIY aged vintage vases so that you can make them too. I had most of the materials already at home. I had purchased a couple vases from the thrift store, so my total cost to make these 3 vases was less than $10. So I want to show you how you can do that as well. The red one here I did a little differently. I applied compound to it to create a different type of texture. So I'm going to do a separate video on that one, but the prep is the same as the other two. So I started by just grabbing some primer that I already had. It was a 2-in-1 spray paint and primed the vases with that just to give the paint something to stick to. These aren't going to have a lot of traffic, so I wasn't too worried. If you don't have a primer, I wouldn't stress about it or even really go spend money to buy something just for this project. But if you have it sitting around at home, grab it and give it a prime. Now, for paint, I already had these items at home. I just used leftover paint samples, leftover paint from past projects, paint I had from the dollar store. I just grabbed every neutral color that I had, some browns, some beiges, some grays, some black, and I had some baking soda, which is key to get that textured vintage look. And I just mixed it in with the paint colors. The consistency, I had a different consistency every time I mixed a paint color. Sometimes I had it thicker, thinner, just play around with it. I had some paintbrushes and I also had some painting sponges, which I think were really key for this project as well too. So if you don't have those, I would say grab some, or if you've got some sponges at home, just use those. I found that really helpful for applying the paint. I don't think there's a proper way to do this. You just need to play around with it. So I just kept dipping the paint with the sponge and applying it around the vase and kind of dabbing over some areas to blend it in and space it out. But I didn't get too particular because really this is just my first coat of paint. So just play around with it, dab it. Sometimes I found dabbing it as well as kind of slide like pushing it into the vase also gave it a nice textured look. And then instead of waiting for it to dry, I just used a blow dryer to speed up this process so that I could get into the next layer. So after I went in with this really dark brown, almost like a blackish color, I then went over with a beige. This time I'm using a brush. Again, there's baking soda mixed in with this paint. And I just kind of eyeballed it until it had a bit of a thicker consistency. And then you can see here, I've changed my mind. I'm going back in with the sponge. I think most times I prefer the sponge over the brush, but nonetheless, play around and see what works best for you. You can see that I'm really starting to get a blended look between the beige and the dark brown underneath. I just have it poking through in different areas. Um, just kind of playing around with it until I like the way it looks. Once I was done with the brown, the lighter beige, I should say, I went in with a taupe color and did another layer with that and just kept dabbing with the sponge. I would rinse my sponge off at the sink in between paint colors and it kind of added a bit of water in my sponge. I found that this actually helped blend the colors a bit more too. And again, sometimes I did a little bit of like a wiping motion with the sponge to blend it in with the colors. After I went in with the taupe, I then went in with a gray color that I had, a fusion mineral paint left over. I think it's cobblestone is what it's called. And in hindsight, I kind of regret going in with that color. It just made everything too gray, but that's okay because I just ended up going over that again in a little bit here with some of those browns just to bring those colors back out. can see here, this is the vase all dry. So I took a burnt orange and with this funkier looking sponge, just very lightly dabbed it on sporadically just to have a little bit of that rustic look coming through and just played around with that until I liked the way it looked. Then I decided I wanted a little bit more of that dark brown that I originally went in with to come through. So I started dabbing that on as well. I also made this consistency super thick with the baking soda so that it was thicker and just more rough. So once I started dabbing it in with the sponge, I then went in with my hands and essentially just started rubbing it in like it was dirt. And the consistency was very thick. So this actually worked quite well. I've seen people in the past take coffee grinds and rub that into the vase or go outside and actually get dirt. I found this kind of did the same thing. Again, just had a very thick consistency with the paint and then would dab it on and then use my hands to kind of rub it into different spots. And I just liked the way that it blended it in nice and seamlessly. If you're enjoying this tutorial and you love things all home DIY and design, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. It would mean a lot and I'd love to continue to share projects with you. At this point, I'm probably just being picky, but I'm now going in with a lighter color again and then sort of rubbing that in with my hands back and forth between that and the sponge just to get that final look that I am happy with. And that's going to look different for everybody. You may have stopped a few coats ago, or maybe you would add more, but this is kind of where I landed at with this specific vase. And now I'm going to jump right into the little one that I worked on. So I started off with that one, pretty well coating the entire thing in the dark brown color. I didn't record that, but you can see it there. It's pretty dark, and just dabbed that on. And then I'm going in here with a taupe color and putting that on with the brush. And then from there, I'm taking my sponge that's slightly damp and just kind of blending that all in. See here, it's looking a little more on the gray side, and you can see that dark brown poking through underneath. And now I'm just going back in with a different brown that I had sitting around and mixing the baking soda in with that. And I just want this one to be a little bit darker because I wanted the vases to all kind of have a slightly different shade and vintage look to it. And so with this one, I made it a very thick consistency as well with the baking soda and then just sort of rubbed it in with my fingers to give it that kind of dirty, blended in look on the outside. So this is the finished product. Again, the third one I'm going to do a separate video on because I did a slightly different technique on it. So you'll see that posted next. But these are them all finished. I love how they turned out. This cost me less than $10 out of pocket. I'm sure you have many of the things lying around at home as well too to make these. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and we'll see you in the next one.